My name is Anne-Marie Taylor, and I'm your host for today's session on Human Resources Management Certificates here at the York School of Continuing Studies. I'm the program manager for both of the part-time and the full-time certificates. So just in terms of what the agenda is looking like today, so we're going to talk a little bit about um, York, what the school is like. We're going to go over the human resources programs and all the information that goes along with it. What the full and part-time programs look like. I might spend a little bit more time on the part-time programs, just considering who's in our audience, but also the schedule and how to register and lots of time for Q&A. So a little bit about York, for those of you who are not familiar. So York University is located in Toronto. We're the third largest university in Canada, with over 53,000 students, 12,000 international students representing 178 countries. We have world-class rankings, and the School of Continuing Studies, which was founded really less than 10 years ago, it really has some market-leading programs, of which this HR program, both the full and part-time, were one of the flagship programs when the school first opened. When we're thinking about the human resources certificates, I'm going to talk about them in terms of a collective at the moment because they're really built in the same sort of way. One of the things that our programs are known for, and why people come and take them with us year after year, is that there's two different delivery formats, which allows you for a lot of flexibility. So the part-time program is really a part-time program. You take one course at a time. It lasts about 18 months. And then we have a full-time program, which is more intensive. It is 9 months, and you take two courses at a time in person. We have a very condensed format, so it's shorter than most other programs. As I mentioned, the full-time program, which is in-person learning, you can complete it in just 9 months, whereas our part-time program, it's 18 months part-time, where there's a lot more self-directed learning, but you still get to benefit from one of the hallmarks of our programs, which is this cohort model. For those of you who aren't familiar with a cohort model, it means that you start your certificate all together with the same group of students. And the idea is that everybody completes their certificate with the same group of students. Having this cohort model is almost like instant community. So for those of you on campus, you get to know each other the first day, and 9 months later, you'll be all graduating together. For people who are learning part-time on their own, the cohort model, though you get to learn independently, you also are traveling through the courses together, so you can form teams, learning groups, be able to network, and really create a little bit of a community as you're all learning and working through your certificates together. The other thing that our programs are really known for is that they're developed by industry experts. We have what we call a program advisory council, and this is senior members of HR professionals and other business leaders that help us inform not just the material that we cover, but also how we cover it. What are the skills that are important to make sure that you are successful in the future? And all of those things, they really do provide me with a lot of information to help the courses stay current and provide improvements to the curriculum throughout the year. And then when we think about the programs themselves, our instructors are, for the most part, all working professionals. So they have a lot of real hands-on experience that they're going through right now that they share with you in the classroom. It's really important that our instructors can bring to life the theory and provide you with examples of application and that real sort of world organizational know-how, because it's one thing to sort of read it in a book, but it's another thing to know what it really means in real life when you're on the ground and you're working. So one of the things that we really pride ourselves on here at the school, and not just in the HR program, but also in the other programs that we have, is that we really focus on what we call the T-shaped learner. Now, this is the T-shaped learner is something in the educational field, but really what it means is that we're focusing on developing not only those technical career specific or professional specific skills, but we're also giving you other sort of enabling competencies or our soft skills to help you really thrive and be successful in your career. So although in HR you might need to learn about compensation, as a successful practitioner and being able to secure that job, we also know that, and we hear from our HR professionals as well as the professional designation, the HRPA, that people are looking for organizational skills, time management, communication, confidentiality, um, adaptability, teamwork, problem solving, leadership. So these are all of the other soft skills enabling competencies that will make you successful in your career. And all of our programming is really designed to not only work on those technical skills and give you that foundational knowledge, but then also be able to practice and flex those other skills with how we create our courses and our programming. So you'll get a variety of different kinds of assignments. There'll be teamwork, there'll be chances to learn independently. There will be final exams, but not in most of our courses. We often do projects. So it's all done in a way to ensure that you'll be successful later. When we think about careers in human resources management, the this is one of the fastest areas of growth in sort of the larger job market. Career analysts expect the number of human resources jobs to increase in the future, and the median annual income for careers in the human resources field is above the national average. It's really for these reasons and more that you're probably wondering how to start a career in human resources. Um, but I want to give you a sense of some of the job titles that you can look for when looking on sites such as Workopolis and Indeed. So there's human resources generalist, recruiters, learning and development specialists, health and safety officers, career counselors, corporate trainers, human resources consultants, and human resources officers. So for those of you who are currently working in an organization, large or small, there is probably somebody with a human resources, some sort of human resources capacity within your organization. And if you take a minute and stop and look at what they do, there's a breadth of opportunity in terms of employment. So one of the things about the human resources profession is that it's part of there's the Human Resources Professional Association, HRPA. And the HRPA is really the governing body here in Ontario. And they grant the CHRP and the CHRL designations. Now, the CHRP is the Certified Human Resources Professional, and the CHRL is the Certified Human Resources Leader. We're going to dig into those in a little bit, but this is really the regulatory body for any practicing human resources professionals in Ontario. According to a large study conducted by payscale.com, they can confirm that those who have obtained the CHRP or the CHRL designation are promoted faster, hired by larger companies, and earn more than those without having attained those designations. They also indicated that a lot of the job postings often require those designations to sort of gain entry into senior roles, but it's not absolutely necessary, but it is one of those things that can help you get to your goal faster. So not only does the CHRP designation correlate with more job opportunities for HR professionals, but it can also be tied to promotions, as I said. So PayScale was able to look at HR professionals' career path information, specifically on how their job title closely, they looked at sort of the job titles to see how those individuals who earned the CHRP designation progressed to higher levels of positions more quickly than their colleagues. And the conclusion from PayScale was that obviously that they were promoted more frequently and moved into higher positions. In terms of the sort of HR management position within an organization, large or small, they're more often than not the CHRP designation. So when you start to look and you start to Google those jobs, you'll be able to see what that looks like. When we look at the CHRP designation and we think about sort of how does this certificate work within it, so this to gain your CHRP designation, you have to fulfill your educational requirements. Our courses are all HRPA approved, so that's a big check mark there. And then after you take our certificate and you get your certificate, then there's a knowledge test, an exam, and a couple of other things that you have to do in order to get your designation. The HRPA provides a lot of information about that. And for the students in the full-time program, you qualify as a student member. For the part-time students, there is a requirement to have a certain amount of courses per semester. And so that's not necessarily an option for you, but you can reach out to the HRPA and see what can work, or maybe even within your own organization. If you have a colleague who's in the HR function, they might be able to help you out there. But I think really for this, it's really just sort of see the career progression that you can make, and to know that you can feel confident about the education that you're investing in now, that it will help you get to your designation. Now for the CHRL, which is the Certified Human Resources Leader, this requires your educational requirements, as well as an exam and a couple of other courses from the HRPA, but you also need 3 years of work experience. And then you can flow through to the leadership designation. So very, very similar in approach. It all depends sort of where you are in your career. So you might begin with your CHRP designation and then move on to your CHRL, but you can still trust that your educational requirements are met by us. So when we're thinking about sort of what most of our students are like in the HR programs, most of the students who take our programs are new and aspiring managers, professionals who want to develop other types of business skills to go along. So maybe they had a business degree, but now they want to go into a more management function. This is an option for them as well. And also professionals interested in leadership roles within their organization, and perhaps even maybe just changing your career as well. As promised, we're going to dig into these the two different certificates. So I'm going to begin with the full-time certificate in human resources management. This is the full-time in-person certificate. So this one has 10 courses, and if we keep the flow fairly consistent from intake to intake. And if you remember earlier, I talked about cohorts. So our courses, our certificates either start in September, January, or May, and you will travel through together. And in the full-time program, you will take 2 courses at a time. So for example, you will take, I'll use the top 2 here. You'll take business communications and human resources management in September and October for about 6.5 weeks. You have courses 4 out of the 5 days, so Monday through Thursday, you get Fridays off. And as an example, you'd be learning from 8:30 in the morning to 11:30 on those 4 days. So it's about 12 hours of learning, in-class learning a week, for 9.5 months. And in between each 2 courses, you have about a week off to catch your breath, and to dig into the next 2 courses. So for a fully online certificate, this is the part-time certificate. It takes about 18 months to finish, and it is only 9 courses. It's all the same curriculum with the exception of business communication. Our part-time students do not take business communications. They really just focus on the 9 specific courses. And unlike the part-time program, you take 1 course at a time. So you'll take human resources management, you'll do a lot of independent learning, but you'll also be doing group work with the students in your cohort. So yes, it's on demand. So there's no live instruction, no set time to sort of stop in for class. You're expected to manage your learning on your own, but you'll also be put into teams or maybe pairs to do projects or to do casework and that type of thing. So the type of activities and assignments are very, very similar to what happens in the full-time program. Just in this one, you're really managing your own schedule in terms of how you're working your way through the course materials. In terms of program fees, the full-time program is $18,999 for international students. and 8,249 for domestic students. Um, and the part-time fully online fee is 6,921. There's a lot of information about fees and funding and all of those pieces. I have a slide at the end with who to contact. So our registration team can answer any of those questions when you're ready for it, but those are the fees as they stand now. In addition to, the program and what happens in sort of all of the activities within your courses, there is a whole bunch of things that happen in addition to that. So we often have webinars or panel discussions and guest speakers. I know we have a simulation in one of our courses for negotiation for industrial relations. There's also projects, but lots of opportunities for networking and mentoring. And then access to all of these things here. So you get access to Office 365. And although Ripen is not available at the moment, that is a virtual like workplace learning. I'm trying to figure out how we can do that in our very accelerated programs, but Ripen is something that we've partnered with here at York. We also often get the HRPA to come in at least once or twice a semester to come in and host a webinar to answer all of your questions about the profession, how to get your designation, and things like that. So in terms of the next offerings, we have for part-time, winter and fall is open. I'm also considering opening up a spring session that would start in May, but for right now, winter enrollment is open, and fall 22 will be open shortly as well. For the full-time program, winter 22 is a January start. For international students, the registration is closed because we're starting very, very soon. And for spring 22 for everybody is open, as well as fall 22. So in terms of what requirements are needed for the full-time program, for international students, your IELTS, your English proficiency scores, at least 6.0 for an IELTS. And for everybody, it's a minimum of a 60% in another higher education degree at a university, or 70% from a college. The application process is really quite seamless, and we do review them within 2 weeks. But for the part-time students, a lot of you were looking at starting in January. There's absolutely plenty of time to register and get started for the January start. And I mentioned that sort of who to call in the School of Continuing Studies. Now, obviously, there's the website. We have a Continuing Studies advisor, David. He is really great resource in terms of if you have any questions about the hows and whys of the program. David is really your person. Once you have registered and you have or you have applied and you have questions about fees or visas or health insurance for our international students, the registration department, that is your go-to website there. Everybody's really great about pointing you in the right direction, but those are your key resources there. I will say, if you have already applied and you're needing information, if I can kindly ask you to always include your full name, your program of study, and your student ID. It really is so very helpful when we're trying to answer your questions that we can quickly look up your file. I would also suggest to you that to avoid, to really try to go to the right email address or person and avoid copying in everybody, because it just sort of clogs up the email and slows things down, and we don't necessarily get to you any faster if you're reaching out to the continuing studies advisor and registration at the same time. It doesn't necessarily mean that your request will be expedited. It's really more important to get to the right people. But as somebody who's had a fair amount of questions this week already, I would say your student ID number is absolutely, if you could do that, I'm sure everybody will be very thankful. But that's really it from my end, and I'd like to open it up for questions. I'm going to leave this slide up here if you wanted to be able to take a picture of it as well. Okay, I have I have a couple of questions already, but feel free to jump in. For the online program, does each course take about 6 weeks as well? Oh, good question. Sorry, I missed that. It's about 8 weeks per course. So somebody has a question. Just for clarification, YorkU's website, the full-time HR program is post-degree certificate, whereas the other full-time uh, programs, public relations, are postgraduate certificate. Is there a difference between the two? No. It's just the naming conventions that we've used. I took some HR courses during my undergrad. Can they be transferred over? This is a great question. So for any of you who have taken HR courses or in your undergrad or maybe even your graduate work, we do allow for one transfer credit. Um, the request has to be made prior to the program starting. Underneath the website, if you go to the website, underneath the program that you select on, there's policies. There's one about transfer credits. There's a really easy form to fill out. You'll need your syllabus. The more complete, the better, as well as the course that you're looking to transfer. It needs to be an 80% matchup. Because we are a HRPA approved program, we need to be able to say that, yes, you've completed that. But again, it has to be done prior to the program starting. So if it starts January 15th, it has to be done before January 14th. Okay. We know that these need to be expedited, so we do watch out for them and answer them quickly. When will we find out which textbooks we will need for January courses? Um, those, if you're already registered, they will be in your Moodle shell soon. We recommend that you only purchase the textbooks for the courses that you're taking sort of immediately. Don't buy them for the whole program because, as you know, editions change, and we don't want you to be purchasing anything that you won't be able to use later. We're very, very sensitive about how often we change editions. But yeah, it'll be in your Moodle shell. Is there any benefit to taking the full-time program versus the part-time program, or is this mainly a personal preference? It really is a personal preference. Oftentimes in our part-time program, they tend to be working professionals who one course at a time works best for them. And really for people who need the absolute flexibility in terms of when you can take courses, can you get a morning off to learn in person or not? So most often our students in our part-time program are already working, and this is really about sort of launching your career into the next level. But it's really up to you. If you have the time to learn in person, the full-time program is great. You're done in 9 months. But if you're not, if you have other commitments, the part-time program really does give you the flexibility. If you are an international student, I will give this caveat that the part-time programs do not fulfill your postgraduate work visa requirements. And always check with an independent immigration person about your choice and how that may or may not impact your visa and your work permits later. Any part-time online courses for the spring of 22? Yes, I might be, I'm just firming that up right now, and it is looking like we'll have a cohort starting in May for the part-time program. How many people are generally in the part-time program? So that varies from semester to semester. Right now, we have about 70 students in the part-time program, and I think we'll probably have about 50 or 60 in winter. The fall does tend to be the busier intake, but it can go upwards of 100 because of that flexibility and people being able to work. We do have, because those are large numbers, we do have, in addition to the instructors, we have a TA who works then alongside you, and they actually follow you throughout your whole program, whereas every course is taught by a different subject matter expert. Is this program good for somebody in Quebec? Are the HR requirements the same? That you'd have to check with the professional bodies on that one. I think if you reach out to the HRPA, they'd be able to answer that question for you. If we applied to the certificate program and went through OSAP, do we wait for OSAP in order to enroll, or do we pay the minimum first and then wait for OSAP? So any questions regarding fee payments, please contact the registration department with your student ID number and your program of study in the email as well. They'll be able to answer those questions for you. Does York offer career services to help us secure employment after graduating? So we don't offer career services, but we are expanding a new program for anybody who has or a new website that will help you to be able to find work. It's called Career Nexus and Career Brain, and it's just in its sort of nascent version for current students at the moment, but it's AI driven to be able to, you can upload your qualifications, your skills, your certificates, your resume, and what kind of career you'd like to do. And it will help you match up those skills, tells you what the job prospects are and all of that kind of stuff. In addition to that, we do try to create networking opportunities and job fairs. It's been a little tricky during COVID to be able to do that, but there are other opportunities for that. For on-campus accommodation, that's best to reach out to the advisor. We do not provide accommodation services, but if you reach out to David, he'll be able to provide you with more information. Is the full-time HR program eligible for PGWP? Yes. Yeah. What is the application deadline for fall 22? The application, we don't have a formal one. Our programs are open until they are full. So you can apply now if it's on the website for the fall, and then you can secure your spot early. But if you're coming from out of country, I will say that I think the best guess now is you want to get your acceptance letters a good 2 to 3 months in advance, depending on your home country's visa requirements. For the part-time program, we often leave that open until the day that the program starts. But that's for part-time. That's for part-time only, not full-time. If you register for part-time online, can you switch to full-time in person if needed? We do that on a case-by-case basis. Oftentimes, it actually works the other way around, is that some full-time people, if it's not, if there's no sort of hindrance to their visa or their status, they will move to the part-time program. But we look at it case by case basis, and we work with you to ensure that your schedule is being met. I think I answered this, but just in case I didn't, I took some HR courses during my undergrad. Can they be transferred? Again, it was just only one course we allow for transfer, and must be done prior to the course's start date, the program start date. So if your program's 1.5 years long, you have to do it prior to the beginning of the program. What will be the schedule for online in the January session? So the January session starts mid-January, and we start with the HR management, which is 8 weeks long. What are the job prospects for students who have a college diploma in another field but do not have an undergraduate degree? I'm not sure I can answer that. That's a pretty broad question, but I think it depends on what you studied. I think if with these specifically to these HR programs here, with our certificate program, if you're already working, it can allow you for employment, sort of moving up within your organization or perhaps out into a different role, but not knowing what your other degrees are in. I'm not sure I can answer that question for you. Are there any resources for students with learning disabilities if they required more help, and how is it accessed? So this is really important. There are, yes, absolutely. There's the Office for Accommodation. We ask that you reach out as soon as you are registered. You will have somebody who will work with you. You are then given, they will do an assessment. That assessment then goes to the to the program manager. And if it is something where, for example, you might need more time for an exam, we work with you to make that happen. And we also, depending on how you'd like to work with confidentiality, you can let your instructor know what your accommodations are, but we can as well. But there is an office that works through that. I will say that, as soon as you're accepted, I would start um, making those inroads, especially going into, if you were looking at the fall. Once you have your acceptance letter, I begin doing that outreach. Not that they're slow, but this is a big school, and sometimes it's just like there's a number of students asking for help. So if anything that's about your particular situation, whether it be accommodation or something else, it's best to get started on any of that sooner. So the full-time, yes, the full-time is the day program. So right now we are planning to be on campus in January for the January intake, although we are surveying our students to see, just with recent changes to the IRCC and with the new variant, we're doing a survey now. So we don't, we're going to make a judgment call on what types of learning we're offering. We learned a lot over the last 2 years in terms of what students prefer, whether it be fully on campus, whether it be a blend, or whether it be live online. But yes, those courses happen during the day, regardless of where we're learning. What is the average class size for the full-time program? The um, the class size is capped at 60 students. We often have between 35 and 45 students in the class. Is this program tailored towards individuals with a university degree? Or is it also tailored for people who come from another background, such as tourism, who are looking to start a new degree? Will it be a useful certificate, and does one need a university degree? You need a university degree to enter the full-time program. Um, you can enter the part-time program without a university degree if you are a Canadian student. So in terms of tailoring, our programs, they're university level courses, but with a very practical um, and applicable approach to them. So our goal really is to give you that really sort of rigorous education, but with real practical and applicable skills that you can go and use immediately. So I think it depends on sort of what you're getting out of the course and what you're expecting. Um, but I wouldn't say it would, if you haven't done a degree, that it would necessarily be any harder for you or easier for you. After taking the human resources certificate, would it be beneficial to take the risk management online course? Oh, it depends really what you'd like to do. I think it sounds like a really great pairing. But in terms of how you're planning your career, risk management right now is absolutely um, like a hot topic. And having that combination with, and often HR professionals are involved in risk assessment and decisions within organizations. So that could be a really, really interesting pairing. But with the HR courses and certificate, you'll get a lot of that operational piece, which can probably help you better understand sort of organizational structures, interdependencies with the people side and the operational side of an organization to help you with your risk management certificate. What are the chances of finding a job taking the full-time accelerated program versus the part-time online? So it really, that is really, there's no difference in the programming. I think what will help you sort of um, further your chances is, like, if you're looking to get a job in the field of HR, I would really strongly suggest that you pursue your HRPA, CHRP designation. It really is, when people are going through resumes, when you take a look at sort of what you'd like to do, and you look on Indeed or Workopolis, it'll often ask for that HRP CHRP designation. But no, between the two, it really is, they're the same program, with the exception of the business communications course. It is the same content developed by the same subject matter experts. Can you elaborate on what supports are included as part of the program to prepare for the designation specifically? Um, beyond just the coursework. So the designation itself, the courses do set, that's your educational requirements, which is a large part of getting your designation. So that really does it. And then the HRPA then has its own, like you have to sit their exam. We do a lot of testing to help, although we try to avoid final exams and rather do sort of project and casework, we do final exams with questions that sort of will help you sort of practice for the test. When will you post the spring 22 registration info? Shortly. So I believe the website is being looked at. So if you go to the York Continuing Studies website, you go to HR, it will only show January, I believe. But if you go down to apply, it should be there. It should be there now. I was working on that this morning to make sure it was up. Are there any math courses and what will they entail? Um, Well, no specific math courses, but there is an accounting course that you have to take. And it's designed for specifically for HR people. So it's half managerial accounting, half financial accounting. And there is also a compensation course because the compensation is a large part of sort of the HR function, and that does require some math and Excel skills too. But you are given access to LinkedIn Learning along with your, becoming part of the course, and we're putting together sort of a list of tutorials to help out with that. That is the end of the questions. If you have anything else, I'll stay on the line for another minute. Thanks again, everybody. Have a great day. Have a great rest of the year. And if you have any other questions, like I said, reach out to David at continue@york.ca, and we'd be very excited to have you as part of our program.